8.1 billet cases, 2 fast 100 cylinder.
Holy cow.
That's a big pipe.
Bro, I want one of these.
Really unique. I mean, this whole setup is actually unique, but the reeds are giant. Your OEM cases or your RC1 cases, or whatever, you don't have all this in here. So it actually seems like this is maybe a little bit narrower. I mean, every thread's perfect. There's no sharp burrs. Well, you got the story on the motor, right?
What happened?
Okay, so 8.1 cylinder was garbage. Needed about $500–600 worth of repairs. And he said, oh, it shipped again. So I waited for months. Had I known he didn't ship it, I would have just had the cylinder repaired. Zero. I mean, he lied to me. He said he shipped it and he didn't.
Oh, yeah.
What's it do?
It takes the hot air from outside.
It's not going to be a full race setup. It's still going to be on pump fuel.
And what is this one getting?
8.1 billet cases, 2 fast 100 cylinder.
We do when Pat's stomping around upstairs.
You feel that? Look at
Yeah.
that.
Holy cow.
That's a big pipe. Oh, you're handing it to me?
Yeah.
It's heavy. It's got
What?
some
So what is that for? Like RC1? Like Minarelli?
No,
or?
it's for these special billet cases. It's going in the Aerox.
I know, but what is the engine style?
Minarelli.
Minarelli?
Yeah.
Is it? Or Piaggio? That's Piaggio.
You're right.
Was that 100?
Mm-hmm. Good lord! Look at that exhaust, dude.
Oh my.
Yeah.
My oh my.
Wow.
That ain't your mother's exhaust port.
Or is it? It may be exhaust port.
Hey,
Dang it.
you have to cut that out because my mother watches these videos, Pat. She'll come you up, Pat. Or Brandon.
I have a feeling your mom was a gangster.
She'll turn your buckle.
Look at this, how that goes.
She'll turn your exhaust port into that, Brandon. You talk shit.
So we got cylinder. There you go, check that out. What do you want first, Dustin? That's torsion arms, seen that before.
I highly suggest we tape this engine case up with tape so it doesn't get all scratched up until it's ready.
Oh, this company.
Bro, I want one of these and I don't even have a two-stroke.
Dude, none of us in here can afford to build one of these.
Yeah, I can.
Anyone need some cocaine?
Paul, that's like 7 Camrys, bro.
How many?
7?
Seven Paul Camrys.
Wow.
Cool.
I can't believe we have another one of these in here. I was like, oh, we'll never see this again.
Well, imagine what that's going to look like in that, too.
Oh, yeah. So that's going in the Aerox, right?
Yep. I need to tell Tim, it's time to pay up. Melosi makes a full engine package. Of course, you guys all know RC1. Too Fast pretty much makes a full engine package. You don't get your bearings, well, you do get bearings and seals, but you get the engine case. They make their own cylinder, crank and pipe, and then 8.1 does as well. So there are a few different brands where you can literally just get a full engine package with all their parts.
So what's this for, Paul?
Customer in New York.
What motor?
It's a Zuma Bug-Eye.
So you bought a 2 Fast 100 kit from us, right, a while ago?
And then he bought some OEM cases from the Yamaha dealer. And what do we got here? Some bearings and seals, I guess. Those aren't even for Zuma though. Those seals.
Those are Dio, dude.
No Piaggio.
Speed fight, wrong bearings and seals, but we got you. We know where to get the right stuff. It's like 10 feet that way. About.
Ooh,
Ooh,
stickers.
wow.
Are these for us?
Oh wow, he actually included dowels and stuff. That's cool.
He knows we like stickers.
That's probably not for you.
Well, who's it for then? They're like just cheap
That
stickers.
definitely looks like something you... Oh yeah, that's definitely got you written all over it.
Stickers on the Scoot. OEM, brand new OEM Yamaha cases and crank, and not OEM crank.
Hair's looking a little floof today, Paul.
Is it? Put gel in it this morning.
Yep.
Okay, so this is for Tim's Nicolaus Aerox. Long story short, we bought the 8.1 billet cases. They're modular, they're really cool. We'll talk about those in a second. We bought the 8.1 pipe, cylinder and crank. Got the cylinder and it was needed to be reworked, re-nicosilled, reported because it had big pits in it. It was just not usable. And basically ended up not ever getting a new cylinder and being stuck with a pipe and crank and no cylinder. So we could kind of go off down that road. A few really unique, I mean this whole setup is actually unique, but the reeds are giant. This is from Italy, this is 8.1. There's a lot of stuff to go over, but kind of I'm just gonna go over the few main things. It's modular, it's in pieces, right? So the RC1 is 2 separate pieces. It's cast, which means, you know, they fill a mold and they cast the product and they go over and clean it up. Where this is blocks of aluminum and a CNC goes over and machines everything out. So the strength is night and day, the precision and quality and everything is huge. I can't even imagine how long it would take. I don't know how long it would take to machine these pieces and how many hours went into it. So I think these cases are $2,500. But
And that's bare.
well, you get bearings, you get seals, you get the intake manifold, the reeds. I mean, you got to think, if you wanted to buy just this by itself with the reeds, you're probably going to spend $300. These reeds are probably $150. This section here would probably cost you $50, and the boot's probably $50. So every little thing adds up. But what's really neat about this is you can, on this guy, you can access your gears and everything from the back side. So if you want to access your gears and everything, you don't have to pull your CVT apart. So that's cool. You've also got your pins for your drum brake, and then you also have your mounting spot for your disc brake, which is really neat. But the main thing about this setup, other than just how nice it is, you can see everything's you can take apart piece by piece. Like this tab here, you can see it's bolted on, so you can take off this one layer here. It's nice as you have all this here for cooling as well. The main thing that's really cool is your water runs through this section. So on the RC1, you don't have this. It's really nice. So it's just way thicker, way stronger here, and your coolant actually flows around your bottom end. Normally on the Piaggio, it just goes in the side of the engine, up into the bottom of the cylinder, around the cylinder and out the top. So this is really cool. It's flowing all the way around around the actual bottom end, which I didn't know that these were like this till I split it. So really, really neat. So you have your one piece there, and then you've got this piece here. So it's pretty neat because when you're working on it, you don't have to have this big section here. You can take it off in pieces, which is really cool. So your CVT is all separate. So there's some pretty big benefits to this if you're going back and forth changing parts. For race setup would be really nice because it's gonna be a lot easier to work on. This is keyed here as well, so it can only fit in one direction. So your holes are always gonna line up perfect and square. So really impressive, really impressive. The time in engineering and quality that went into this. Just the amount of time that was spent is pretty drastic. So gonna go ahead and get the crank installed today. Try to get the crank in today, seal up the bottom end again, maybe. What's just really cool about it is all I have to work with is just this here for the crank, which is really cool. So you're not risking damaging any of this. It can just go in a box and get put away. This is all I need. These two pieces, the cylinder and the intake, to pressure test the whole motor, which is pretty cool. But yeah, and then you've got a bunch of other things too. You've got this shock mount back here that's got the bolts up here, so you can actually move this back and forth. You can go forwards if you want to change the mounting where the shock is. You can move it. I'm not expecting to to sell a lot of these because they're really expensive. But it's nice to show you guys what's out there, and you know, it's a lot of money, but once you get it in your hands, you realize, I mean, this is probably 10 pounds, right? 10, 12 pounds. So again, this was all one solid block of aluminum. It's just overwhelming thinking about how much time it would take. But again, 8.1, I don't think this is going to be a thing we're going to sell quite a bit of, but we do have access to them. We're dealers for them. So all this stuff here you can get. This setup should be, I mean, you should be able to hit 95 to 102 miles an hour, somewhere in there, if you have it dialed in and tuned right with a race ignition. So yeah, this is exciting stuff. Gonna go ahead and get to work.
And then this was also ported, right?
It was. So Joe touched it up a little bit, but he said it actually was really close. So it didn't need a whole lot of work. So this was, Joe went through and ported these guys. Cylinders really don't need very much, if anything. So again, this is not going to be a race bike for Tim. It's just going to be a really high revving, high powered bike he's probably going to use on the street. I'm sure he's going to run 110. We'll probably set him up with 110. Or I don't know if he's going to run alcohol. I'll have to talk with him about that. But just going to be a weekend ripper race bike type of thing. It's not going to be something he's going to be tracking or taking to events or anything like that. So just a fun weekend toy.
Yeah.
Yep.
So technically, if you wanted to, you could have like a whole nother backup cylinder ready. If you were like, if this was like a race motor, you could have just this whole nother section ready. So, oh, I blew it up, bam, unbolt it, bolt a new one on.
Yep.
And it would be just literally
ready to go.
Yeah. So you could be down for like literally probably like 20 minutes.
Yep. And what's cool is like, say if you bust a tab off here, or you mess up this section here, the RC1 is all cast. It's 2 pieces. So if you mess up one little tiny piece or crack something, like I knew a guy that ran these horribly atrocious gyronetic wheels on a Zuma. Don't ever run those. They're like 13s and they're giant, and I don't know, they're not for me. But he ended up, I think his caliper hit the wheel, hit one of the spokes on the wheel, and it busted like the back section of his case off his RC1. So he basically had to buy a set of cases, tear it all apart, where if you were to break something on this, which I don't think you could ever break one of these, but if you were, you could buy just this piece, replace what needs to be replaced versus having to replace the whole case. That being said, this is kind of more catered to people who I think are going to be racing quite a bit.
And then this makes it a lot easier to change gearing too, since it's on the exterior instead of having to pull your whole. I mean, technically you still have to pull the belt off, but
yeah,
but it almost seems, I don't know, maybe it's nicer, but not.
And this is all for strength too, so it's light and it's going to add a ton of strength. If you look at your OEM cases or your RC1 cases or whatever, you don't have all this in here. So it actually seems like this is maybe a little bit narrower. The RC1 is a little bit wider in here, but just more room for everything. I mean, you have a ton more clearance here all the way around, and then just all this for strength is really cool. But the one thing that I really like is the fact that the cooling goes around the crank, and then you've got all these cooling fins here, which is, and this is something that he didn't have to do, right? This just takes more time. He could have just not done any of this and would have been fine.
Yeah,
but
that's a whole nother bolt on the jig, because
a whole nother thing.
It's machined this way, and then he has to actually move it. It probably mounts like that, and then this has to be machined, and yeah, it's literally moved multiple times to be machined.
I mean, every thread's perfect. There's no sharp burrs or edges. We've seen some stuff come in from other companies where you get something in aluminum, like you have to wear gloves because it's just sharp, because they're running the machine so fast and they're not taking their time. This is all.
None of the edges are chamfered. This one is.
This is all really, really. I mean, everything's rounded off. No crazy sharp edges. Everything just looks perfect. So, yeah, really excited about this. Gonna go ahead and.
And it seems like they even do their own fittings because they have an anodized
green
and stuff.
Yeah, the RC1 is a steel piece, but on the factory Piaggio, factoid of the day, like my twin, this is actually a rubber piece that goes in with an O-ring into the motor. So it's a 90 that comes out, which is not good on the factory Piaggio. So it's nice. It's just a thread-in piece.
That's interesting too. Like this piece is separate. This little centerpiece for the bearing.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really.
It looks like it's a lot easier to assemble versus another one.
Well, and just how he has the area, because you're your oil comes in here, out the bottom, and goes into the bearing here, and it even has some extra machined areas here to get some pockets to get more oil to that bearing. So just all the little stuff is really, really nice. Reeds are huge. I mean, it's
with the way bigger reeds like this versus an RC1 with the exact same setup, this would probably produce a lot more power, right?
Just bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah, just allows more fuel in.
Cooling as well.
Yeah, cooling is going to stay cooler. Just, yeah, everything about it's just...
None of the other builds have this setup, right?
This is what I'm running on the Twin.
Yeah.
2 of these.
Yeah.
But nobody's using this.
No single. Bummer. It'd be cool to see like the difference between an RC1 with this setup and then this with this setup, because I mean, the only thing that's different is the cases and the reeds.
We have
we have that one, but that's 94.
But that's
right?
94.
Yeah. So I mean, it would still be cool to see. I mean, we'll obviously have video on that at some point, and we'll have video on this on some point, so we can have we'll maybe throw them together and make a comparison video down the line.
See, this should be pretty close horsepower numbers to my 140 Twin.
Oh.
Because the 140 they're not too fast cylinders. They're like too fast is up here, right? And then stage 6 and Malosi's kind of down here as far as performance goes. So the 140, being that they're not quite such high-end cylinders as the too fast, is probably pretty similar in power. I think I was 31 wheel horse, somewhere in there. This should probably be pretty similar, maybe a little bit more, just because it's just more of a... So my cases, my 140, are actually factory OEM cases. They're not RC1 cases. They're just original Piaggio cases that have been machined. So it's not external flange like this. It's not using... It doesn't have the big transfers, and it's just a stock case. It's been machined. So it's basically like the old school version of the Twin that
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Pretty cool. Are you asking?
So this is back together. No, it's not. What's... Brandon, you're slacking on me.
You want the whole story?
I mean...
Well, you got the story on the motor, right? Where did we leave off with?
I mean, we were doing all this fancy stuff.
Okay.
And then what happened?
Okay, so 8.1 sells the cases, crank, cylinder, bore, pipe. So we got everything, and maybe repeating myself, the cylinder was garbage. Needed about $500-600 worth of repairs. Messaged 8.1 and said, hey, listen, cylinder shot, you need something replaced. He said, okay, I'll send you a replacement. This was back in like late February, early March, I believe. So anyways, cylinder never showed up. Just kept waiting, months and months. He said, oh, it shipped. It shipped to you, but I just don't have tracking now. I'm driving, you know, because there's a time difference in Italy versus here. So I just believed him. And then last month I said, hey, listen, you know, this is holding up like probably like an $8,000 build. It's been here. It's been held up since January, I think, or February. And he said, oh, it shipped again. So it just keeps going on and on and on. Meanwhile, I have this stuff just sitting here not doing anything. And with the 8.1, I can't just put his crank in and put on a too fast cylinder. They have to be matched. The crank and cylinder go hand in hand.
And when did you find that out?
Well, no, I knew about that a while ago, because I was like, okay, you know, I'll just buy a too fast cylinder, put it on to get this thing going. Well, the stroke, I believe this, the stroke is different completely. The crank's a different crank.
Yeah.
What a lot of these companies do, I feel, is and I ran into this a while ago with Roost, which is another horrible experience. They too fast changes their cranks ever so slightly, like every year and a half seems like, and I think they do that to make it harder for Roost, because Roost doesn't make their own cranks, and I think they do that to make it harder for other companies to make cylinders based on the too fast cranks. So I ran into that in the past. So if you start mixing and matching parts, you better know what you're getting, because Too Fast sent me it's like 5 years ago, I bought Too Fast cranks, Roost cylinders, and Too Fast sent me cranks that had a longer rod, I believe, or longer stroke than what they were supposed to be, and they did that on purpose because they knew I was using the Roost cylinders and they wanted me to buy the Too Fast cylinders. So be very careful with this stuff, because you're talking $600-700 for a crank, and if you get one that doesn't work with your $700 cylinder, you're not going to be happy. Anyway, so this has happened before. So he said, hey, 8.1 said the cylinder shipped. And I finally got to the point where I'm like, I'm gonna have to call this guy out because nothing shipped. My customer's unhappy. And I posted on like Scooter Addicts, and instantly he posts, I refunded you your cylinder. Why is this a problem? And I look, and he literally refunded me like a minute before he made that post. So he refunded me for just a cylinder, right? That doesn't do me any good because I can't put a too fast cylinder on his setup. And I messaged him and said, I need a cylinder. I don't need a refund. I need the part. Oh, I shipped it. I shipped it. I don't know why you're getting angry. I shipped it. Well, so you know I can't deal with this guy anymore. So went ahead and bought, spent a lot of money buying the full Too Fast setup. This is the last one that's going to be available for 2 months because Too Fast, the cylinders are on back order. Bought the last one, thinking, okay, I'll put it all in these cases. Now I have a crank and cylinder for the 8.1 that can't be used with anything else. And of course, I can't charge a customer for this, right? And I have a cylinder that needs $500 worth of repair. Luckily, I was refunded on the cylinder, but that money is going to get taken to repair the cylinder. Got all this stuff. I asked Too Fast, I said, hey, do you know if your cranks work in these cases? They said, yes, they should. I said, okay, perfect. So buy it all. Well, lo and behold, they don't work in these cases. So in order to make this stuff work in these cases, I'd have to take these cases and have these cases machined. I don't want to machine these cases, and that's about, because it's a new jig for everything, it's about $250 to have these cases machined properly on a CNC, and it's 4 weeks out. These are the things that go into these high-end parts, and companies like 8.1 and Roost, just because you're spending, I probably spent $7,000 on 2 full motor builds from 8.1, $6,000 or $7,000 or whatever. I don't know, it's a lot of money. Zero. He lied to me. He said he shipped it and he didn't, and now he sent me a message admitting yesterday saying, hey, I didn't have any cylinders, so I gave you a refund. So I waited for months. Had I known he didn't ship it, I would have just had the cylinder repaired, taken the loss, but I waited for months because he said he shipped them, and then he just told me he didn't. So just because you spend a bunch of money with these companies, and even if you're a business, doesn't mean that they actually take care of their customers. You'd think being a business to business, they would take care of you buying these expensive parts, but they don't. So 8.1, I would definitely never do business with again. Roost sent me 3 cylinders. Each one needed $400 worth of repair, Nicosil plating. Too Fast is hands down the best. Too Fast, Melosi and Pellini are the best companies as far as customer service goes, quality control. I had a couple cylinders where the cooling area here, there's a little tiny casting bubble, and sometimes water would come out the side of the cylinder, and they actually told me about it. They shipped them to me. They found out, and they told me about it before I'd even put them on. Ended up not being an issue, but the fact that they told me about the possibility of having a defect before I brought it to their attention shows that they actually care about the product. So Too Fast, Melosi, Pellini, this stuff is beautiful, but avoid it. We have another customer that paid to do this with a twin. I would be shocked if he ever actually gets his motor. I hope that he does, but the fact that they can be this way with another business tells me they're going to be even worse with a consumer. So stay away from 8.1 because you don't want to be in this scenario. We're going on 6 months. I bought a whole entire Too Fast 100 kit, which is not cheap for no reason, and also spent $500 repairing a cylinder, and I could have had this motor in the bike running on the dyno already. So time is a big thing, and then our customer is going, what's going on? I have to explain what's going on. So I probably have 4 hours into this ordeal that obviously I can't charge for. So frustrating. Bearings are in here already too. Took it all apart, got it all ready. Put the bearings in the freezer, got the cases ready, got my tools ready. Now it all has to go back. This all has to get bolted together, make sure we don't lose anything. All has to get packed back up, so you have risk of damaging, losing things, and whatnot. So pretty frustrating.
And even though it's $250 to bore these, if for some reason there's some minute little bit of area of a problem, we have to replace this, and this is probably the brunt of the most expense, or at least half of it.
And the odds that 8.1 would actually even send me one are pretty slim. So pretty crummy deal. Really disappointing. and stressful, to be honest, because I want this bike for the customer, and I can't deliver a product, and it's out of my control. So, so yeah, there's a few companies I just flat out just wouldn't do business with. Roost is one of them. Roost sent me a pipe once that was missing an exhaust flange, and they actually told me just to tell the customer to make it himself. So, I also think that these companies probably aren't making a lot of money. I think that it takes a lot of time to make these, and I don't think it's expensive to make. So I think that they, just because they're selling high-end stuff, expensive stuff, I mean, believe it or not, guys, there's not a lot of money in scooter parts. The average margin's 25 to 35, and that's really, really, really low for a business in general. So I don't think they're making that much money on this stuff. So they just don't.
Yeah.
They just don't care. So.
I mean, the machine works really nice, whoever the machinist is, but the support's just not there.
Yeah, the bore, I don't have it, but it had like, here the exhaust area had these huge pits in here, and then the Nicosil on the top side of the exhaust port, it was over chamfered, and you have your sealing of your exhaust port, and then your cylinder here, it's supposed to be, a sharp edge. It was just like ground up at like a 45-degree angle, so it has to be completely stripped. Nicosil has to be stripped, so it has to be shipped to Millennium Plating. They're going to strip it. It's all going to get repaired and it has to get relined again. So it's probably going to take a month and a half to do, probably $50 in shipping back and forth, and then probably $300 in repairs. So the $500 refund or $600 or whatever it was that he gave me for the cylinder is a wash. So expense wise, I bought a whole 100cc kit, which we're going to take and machine a RC1 case and put that in, so we'll have a motor that we can sell, but just the time because I could have had this thing done months ago. That's the most frustrating part.
Oh, we got a new problem. I didn't press record.
You didn't?
Yeah, I did. Just kidding.
I was like, I was just gonna say I'm not doing that again. You can just use like the app where the mouth is moving. You can just like dub in like the robotic sounds, like the auto recording site.